Hey folks, so this is a review of a new wine cooler. I can't for the life of me remember the full manufacturer name because it's just a bunch of letters and numbers. I will put it in the review title though. But it is a Heya, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, wine cooler. We've wanted one for quite a while. And Natasha was lucky enough to win one, so I was very lucky. So we've used it for about kind of 4 or 5 days. Went out and bought quite a bit of wine to pop inside, so whites and reds. I'll come on to kind of how we're actually able to store those in the same wine cooler in a moment, but I'll give you kind of a general overview. This thing is heavy, and obviously if you're looking at me, I'm 5'11", and it's up to kind of the top of my chest. So it's not a small wine cooler. This is probably one more for either people who like to drink a lot of wine, and we don't necessarily, but we do drink a little bit, a restaurant or a kind of pub / bar, because this is a very high capacity wine cooler. I'll kind of give you some basic stats. When you are installing it, obviously you see this isn't the kitchen. Our kitchen is not a small kitchen, but based on the size and the height of this, it probably sits better inside the dining room. We've got it 10 centimeters ish away from the sides and about 10 centimeters away from the back, because it needs good ventilation to be able to circulate in fresh air and obviously regulate the cooling system. So obviously bear that in mind when you are doing it. At the very back, you've got roller wheels, so you can roll it back and forth. Just obviously be careful not to kind of pull it sideways, because there are 2 sets of rubber feet on both sides of the front, so you can actually adjust the height. So when you get this, you probably want a little spirit level to make sure that the top of the unit is as flat as possible. So something leaning too far forwards or too far sideways or backwards isn't going to regulate the temperature properly and be as efficient as it possibly could. Speaking of efficiency, this is a B rating efficiency unit, so it's not the best possible efficiency. You can't really expect that with something with a glass front, but it isn't terrible efficiency either. The actual stats are in the product page. I'll not read those off, but effectively it's not going to be too expensive, but it's not as cheap as a kind of really high efficiency fridge because of the glass front. A couple of other basics about the unit. So I didn't know this until I read up about it, but wine doesn't react well to direct sunlight. So if you've currently got a kind of mini wine rack, like a metal holder, and you've got it by a windowsill, which we did, that's not good for your wine because UV light doesn't bode well for it. So the front of this glass is actually UV light filtered. So if you do, our windows over there, if you do have kind of direct sunlight exposure to the wine, this is going to completely block that out. So for the wine aficionados out there, this is a good thing. Really kind of steady door, and it is kind of a cushion seal, so there's nice thick rubber around here. So you'll notice that it locks quite well, and there's no going. When you actually do get the unit, and this confused me a little bit, you get a little rubber foot on one side. It does say please take this pad away before using it, but it confused me for a good few attempts because the door wasn't sealing properly. But yeah, bottom right, get rid of this foot because it will confuse you. Actually, whilst we're on that, you get 2 sets of keys, which confused me at first because obviously with it being such a large scale cooler, and it's probably going to main intention is to have it in restaurants and pubs, you can actually lock the door. So one reason this might be good is if you're in a large family or a family with kids, young kids, you probably want to lock it anyway, just in case they try and pull one of the bottles out and it smashes. So you've got, effectively it's a little 5-way Allen key. Pop it in, nice simple lock, obviously 2 spare keys or 1 spare key, just in case you lose one. So I'll go into the unit first, explain what's inside, and then I'll explain the display. So this has been on, like I said, for a couple of days, and what you'll notice is that there's a little bar and a little cushion right across the centre, because this unit allows you to have 2 different cooling zones. So one up here, separated by the middle section, and one at the bottom. The one at the bottom is slightly larger, so depending on the type of wine that you drink more regularly, you probably want to stack that at the bottom. You'll see at the top, I've got a couple of reds, so I think we've got 7 bottles of red wine and 6 bottles of white, so the puppies are in shop, and I think 1 bottle of champagne as well. The reason why there's 2 bays is because you can regulate the temperature differently. So I was looking online a little while back, the general consensus, and there's lots and lots of information about it, is that white wine is probably best kept at around about between 6 to 8 degrees depending on the type of wine it is, and red wine is up to 16, again depending on the type of red wine it is. So at the minute we've got this obviously at a slightly higher temperature to keep it kind of coolish. You hear that beeping, to keep it coolish but not to keep it too cold, whereas right at the bottom we've got the white wine quite a bit colder, because obviously the wine's are going to be out slightly different. I'm going to close this just to stop the beeping. But effectively all that's saying to me is the door isn't closed properly, so just in case you've left it open or something's jammed or a bottle's not all the way in, it'll give you a little audio warning to say the door's still open and you're wasting energy. I'll put it back up again just to show one more feature. I mean, these are adjustable shelves, so you can take them up and down a notch. But say for example you've got friends around, or you're having kind of some wine with dinner but you don't finish it, you can push the back up, roll this top shelf forward and down again. So what that allows you to do, and it locks in place, effectively I've got an open bottle of wine, I'm going to pop up to 5 open bottles of wine up to the front. I don't know why you'd have 5 at any one time, but the idea is, say for example it's in a restaurant, you may well have 5 open bottles of wine if people are buying by the glass. So you can put these here and they're actually at tilt, so it's not going to pour out the back. It's a really handy feature if you are, if you've got bottles that you're not going to finish at the time. Again, it's really easy to pop back up. Nice sturdy wooden shelves, really good construction, no squeaking, kind of no bending, and it's a really nice smooth finish. Cool, I'll close that back up a second. So tech specs, so on the inside you've got a couple of bits of gadgetry which you can control all from the front panel. You hold that for a couple of seconds and you'll hear a beep and the actual panel will light up slightly, just to basically tell you that it's now allowing you to change some of these options. So you'll see on the front 2 squares which effectively allow you to switch which zone you are controlling. So at the minute the bottom zone is registering as 10 degrees Celsius with 63% humidity. So you can't control the humidity, but you can see how much humidity there is in there. Basically, if the door's been open, if the room that it's in is really hot and humid, and you close it, the humidity is obviously going to go up a little bit before it drops back down. And you can see the top one, like I said before, 16 degrees. So the red wine is slightly warmer, because obviously you don't want it to be as cool as the white. If, for example, you want to take a quick look at what's inside or what you've got available without opening the fridge, and obviously letting that cold air out, you can pop the light on. You see it takes a little second and then an LED light on both shelves comes on. And you can see if you placed your bottles front way up, you can actually see which wine you're actually selecting without having to open the fridge. And you can also, if you want to help reduce or control the humidity and also control the temperature after you've closed it, you can press the air circulation. So what that will do is it will effectively start to more actively circulate the air around each compartment so that it reduces and maintains the temperature more efficiently. And then obviously we've got the power button, which I'm certainly not going to do at the minute, but you can turn the whole unit off completely. Right now we've got it plugged in around the wall. Obviously there are no plug sockets right next to it. The cord you get is about 2.5 meters long, so you don't necessarily need an extension socket to be able to use it. And if I was wanting to, say for example, change the temperature on the bottom section, choose the section I want, and then change the temperature down or up. There's a variance of 5 degrees as the lowest temperature it can go, and 20 degrees as the highest temperature it can go. And because it's a wine cooler, it doesn't need to get any cooler because of the kind of range that you're supposed to keep the wine at, and it doesn't need to get any warmer because of the range that you're supposed to keep red wine at. So the range that it's allowed to kind of work within and tolerates is actually fine for most bottles of wine. We have snuck a bottle of champagne in there, assuming that it's probably the same tolerances as white wine, but that should be fine. So we've, like I said, we've used it for about kind of 4 or 5 days. It's been on constantly. It's not too loud. There is now and again it'll kind of ramp up to control and maintain the temperature, which can be a little bit kind of noisy at times when the compressor's going off. The feet are a little bit kind of, if you've got a kind of hardwood floor, the feet are a little bit too rubbery on the bottom if you're doing it as one person, so I'd always recommend you have somebody else moving it with you, because like I said, the 2 feet that are on either side, they grip really, really well to a hardwood floor like we've got. So if I was to try and move it, it's not very easy to move because it's probably kind of 3/4 of my body weight. So have somebody help you put it in place. But that's not necessarily a negative thing, just be aware of this big wine cooler. The one thing that I kind of say in terms of the controls, and that's probably the only comment I would make, is it's a little bit confusing when I'm changing the temperature. So if I'm lowering or raising it, it will flash for a few seconds to what I've chosen, but then it will flash back to what temperature it currently is. And if you're not really paying attention, you're not 100% as to whether it's going to go to that temperature or whether there's a way to confirm that. So I had to go back to the manual and make sure that it's just a case of setting it and leaving it, and it will gradually go down. When we originally turned it on, it was about 23 degrees inside, so we popped the wine in, closed the door, and it took around about 20 to 25 minutes to bring the temperature in the top section from 23 to 16, which is really, really reasonable, and a little bit longer in the bottom section because obviously it's going from 23 to 10, but it really didn't take very long at all to change the temperature. Now on the inside, it does say 92 bottles, so it's assuming that you're going to stack some of those bottles, because if you've got red, for example, on the bottom, because I've got it the other way around at the minute, you're stacking up to one extra row on each, rather than kind of one piece. I did find that depending on kind of the bottle sizes you've got, the way the bays are set, you can kind of see that another bottle specifically set on there. So these are intended for white on top, red on bottom, because you can see some of the shelves are really wide shelves, and others are a little bit narrower. So I think it's assuming you're swapping the different types of bottles that you've got. I mean, in reality, close nicely, it does what it says on the tin, and it does it pretty well. I really can't kind of fault the unit. The only thing that I would kind of say would be needing to be a bit clearer is the control process. So raising and lowering the temperature maybe needs to be a bit more of a sort of confirmation dialogue on the screen to say yes, that's the temperature that you've set it at. And it was a little bit confusing to see the different shelf widths, because obviously depending on the type of bottle you have, generally bottles of red are thinner than bottles of white, but maybe if it had kind of a little bit of the instruction of the guidance is white on top and on the bottom. Aside from that, it really, really does what it says on the tin. It is obviously kind of quite a big unit, so it isn't necessarily for everybody, but cools it quickly, keeps it at a good temperature, isn't too loud. Really the only kind of main thing that I would say is if you are going to go and buy this unit, have somebody else to help you install it, because it's very, very heavy, so you will do your back in if you try it by yourself. But other than that, it's a piece of cake. It comes fully assembled, you don't need to do anything with the doors. It's pretty much ready to rock when you unpack it. I'll also leave a written review underneath this video, just so you can kind of see my thoughts and also my ratings for all the criteria. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.